Happy Memorial Day, everybody. Peter says hello. Take some time today to, spend like 5 minutes to meditate and reflect on those that could benefit. I think that's a good takeaway. So in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the market. We're going to be breaking down some trade ideas, and then I'll take your guys' Q&A, then we'll wrap it up. It's going to be a faster session today, so stay tuned. Okay, so let's first talk about the futures market. The futures market is gapping up over the weekend right now. S&P 500 ES futures are up 1.27%. That is as of Sunday futures. So for Monday, there's going to be more futures opening up in about an hour and a half. So we're doing this at a bit of a different time. So we'll see if S&P, this puts in that daily higher low right above prior structure, right above prior resistance, now turns support. So keep an eye out at that level. So if we take a look at SPY, S&P 500, that's going to be around, as long as it's above 576, the short-term uptrend is intact. SPY 563 is going to be some support. And of course, the point of control, SPY 560, is likely going to be some strong support. And I'm going to bring up a lot of stocks and securities in this video. None of this is an offer to buy or sell any security. None of this is financial advice. I'm just drawing on some charts. This is all for educational purposes only. You guys know the drill, right? I'm going to share my screen for you guys real quick, and this will be recorded. Say hello if you're on YouTube. Say what's up. So that's the overall S&P 500. Let's do a quick little recap of last week and what I could have learned. Boston Scientific, I took a 1% stop out. It is holding support, so this setup still looks great over this 107 level. So BSX long over 107, stop goes underneath 103.50. Maybe you can see some all-time highs. Again, anything can happen. This is your risk. If you buy the breakout, you're risking like 3%. And maybe you can get something like 5.5%. So that was really the only tiny expense trade this last week, but everything else was really, really good. As you guys know, SPX, we traded a lot of SPX credit spreads. They were alerted and they were posted in the Trade Ideas channel. But what's super cool about Friday's SPX is that when we're going into a holiday weekend, it's very likely to chop. And so, this is a chop grind higher. I actually structured a bullish weighted iron condor when we were about right here, saying, hey, I think you're going to hold this low of the day, but I think you're going to not really close above the gap that we had from Thursday into Friday. So S&P gaps down, grinds higher all day, and guess what? Closes right in the middle, right in that white box, plus $180, and all you needed in your account was $320. I guess you needed $2,000 for a margin account, but that was the only buying power required. And you guys crushed it. You guys absolutely crushed it. Like, take a look at the VT Wins channel. This is so great to see. $360 over here. Nice job, Pampy. We got Yeem Godley making $524. Hell yeah. I love to see that. So if we take a look at some of, I had a really big green day on Friday as well, and everything just cooperated, I had some shorts on the Russell. Those paid off. Bitcoin longs paid off. We're going to talk about Bitcoin today. CrowdStrike longs paid off. We'll talk about Monster Beverage, MVST, the SPX Iron Condors. I'm long on silver, TSM. So it was a really, really profitable week at the end of the week. It was like, okay, cool. We're just going to go for it. So that brings me into the next stock, CrowdStrike. This is bullish as hell. On Friday, actually on Thursday on the Victory Talk podcast, we were talking about CrowdStrike when it was at 445. And I said, this looks great. Nice bullish consolidation, higher low pivots, right in front of all-time highs. And we started to break out. It had relative volume and relative strength. So people were interested in CrowdStrike on Friday. You can see this morning flag break. I didn't take that, but I did take this flag break right here over 447. Traded some 0-day calls, 0-day spreads, left some spreads running. You can see some of my positions over here. The P&L open should actually be higher, but it's probably just adjusting. But I've got this bullish put credit spread. I want CrowdStrike above 450, and I want it above 455 by this week. And I might even add or average up on CrowdStrike if we can break above 460. So CrowdStrike long over 460. I even like a dip buy near 445, and stop loss would probably go underneath 437. I can always adjust that stop based off market structure as well. So CrowdStrike, nice big winning trade on Friday. Looking for continuation this week, especially if the market's holding up. You know, last week we had a nice good 40% win on AS calls, basically just buying this earnings shock gap up. So whenever you have relative strength and then you gap above into all-time highs, you generally tend to continue higher. Maybe not for a long period of time, but at least for a short period of time. And basically just going long near like 36.50, take profits right near the high of the day. Took profits right at the open at about 38.50. So that was a good one. This is still looking bullish too. You know, bullish over 37.34 on AS, Amur Sports. Okay, so that's a potential trade idea. Let's check out Bitcoin /BTC. So Bitcoin over here, you know, all-time highs. We're talking about it being bullish over 105K. That was a clean breakout. Traded some weekly IBIT calls, and I could have sized up, but whatever. I've got some other Bitcoin trades running. If we take a look at IBIT, I've got this leap call debit spread where I risked very little, and I just wanted above 60, and it can go past 75. I just don't get much more profit after that. So would like to see IBIT get to this 75 level, hopefully by the end of the year, but it could take a bit of time. You know, Bitcoin, I think, has another 20% upside within the next 1 to 2 years, but it could be sooner. It depends on how it holds the prior all-time highs. If it breaks underneath this structure, that could be a false breakout, and you could look for further downside. So look at this flag right over here, breakout. If it comes underneath the flag, that would be bearish. And in that bearish scenario, I would be looking at MSTR shorts, mostly because Michael Saylor sold some shares. And, you know, whenever the CEO sells, you know, they can sell for many reasons. It's not always super bullish, though. So MSTR looking for a potential move down to 340 on MSTR. And there's a lot of resistance around 400 on this. And don't get me wrong, MSTR is one of my biggest losers actually this year. I started shorting kind of down here, and I didn't take profits into this double bottom. And so I had to cut it. It was not a good trade. But, you know, it can always set up later. Maybe I just needed to hold out for this gunk. But that's MSTR. You know, longer term, though, I am still bullish Bitcoin, so I might skip that trade idea. Okay. Next up is silver and gold. So silver, I am long on silver. This is just chilling. I'm pretty much just sitting at break even. I've been sitting at break even for a while. But let's see if silver can't get its booty going. You know, it's starting to form a bullish flag in front of a ton of resistance. But if it can clear this resistance, weekly looks bullish. Monthly chart, this is a, you know, monthly consolidation with higher low pivots. I would like to see silver futures maybe test this like 41 area. So silver SLV could have, you know, 20% upside. Of course, if silver really starts to break down, I would cut losses at like minus 17%. And that would be on the shares, but I do have some longer term call options on silver as well. I'm also bullish on gold. I don't have a position on gold. We've traded gold really well throughout 2025, 2024, and 2023. Just buy the dips, buy the breakouts. That's been paying a ton of money on gold. I expect that gold can potentially go sideways first for a bit of time, but then eventually take out these highs and continue higher. I'd like to see GC /GC futures near like this. Oh, we've already had that 3,200. Okay, so, you know, maybe gold might be topping out. It's tough to say. So not too much analysis on gold. Watch this consolidation. Does it break bear or does it break bull? The dollar will be a big tell. So the $DXY is the dollar, the value of the dollar versus a basket of foreign currencies. Okay, and this has been dropping, steep drop. Nice recovery right here. That's where you saw the dips in gold and silver. Remember that it's generally inversely correlated. The dollar is to gold and silver. So if you see the dollar dropping, take a look at gold and silver longs, maybe even Bitcoin longs. Bitcoin can kind of be a hedge to the dollar. And that could be a big reason why Bitcoin has been going up so much recently. Maybe institutions are allocating more and more Bitcoin. I had a party at my house this weekend to celebrate passing the Series 65 exam. And we were just talking just about different stocks and different securities. I was like, yeah, I just got about 3% of my portfolio in Bitcoin. And he's like, what? You don't want more? Like, you don't have more? I was like, maybe with it hitting all-time highs, I should have had more. But at least I had some and wasn't a complete crypto bear. And, Bitcoin goes in these cycles where it can have extreme euphoria. It can also have extreme despair. Look at some of these drops. That's a 30% drop in like a week or two. So I'm not saying Bitcoin's going to drop 30%, but a 30% drop in Bitcoin would be a retest of this level. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying there's a lot of volatility in Bitcoin. Okay. So that's Bitcoin. Another strong stock is Axon, AXON. We traded this long over 710 and did some bullish weighted iron condors. Those paid out well. I didn't hold the iron condor to expiration. I probably should have, but either way, Axon, it's holding prior all-time highs of support, which is bullish, and there's not a lot of liquidity above. So Axon looking bullish over like 736. Stop can go underneath 710. So you're risking about 3-4% to potentially get a pop through all-time highs, maybe up to this 800 level on Axon. This is the body cam footage for cops. And I actually really enjoy that, seeing body cam footage, like from those like first person cop point of views. You see a lot of interesting stuff. I also think it's very good to be transparent, especially with law enforcement. I think it's safe. But I digress. That's Axon looking bullish, looking good. Last week we talked about Monster Beverage, MNST. This was literally on the thumbnail of my latest video. I said long over 63. It's barely up. It's only up to 63.50, but still bullish. It's holding prior all-time highs of support. Monster Beverage looking good and bullish over 63.50. People are going to be drinking those energy drinks on Memorial Day and on 4th of July as well, which is coming up in 2 months. Well, actually like a month and 2 weeks, 4th of July. So sometimes stocks like these can ramp up ahead of those type of moves. So we talked about Celsius. I didn't have a trade on Celsius, but I just brought it up. And yeah, that hasn't been doing too much as of lately. Okay. We also talked about MVST, the breakout MVST. Boom. Look at that. I was looking for more of a pullback, but I grabbed a couple hundred shares, peeled profits into 380s, still holding 100 shares long right over here. Yeah. Peeling profits into the 380s, still holding 100 shares with a covered call. So I am going to potentially get called away, and that's cool. But MVST did very, very well. If you took that trade idea, that trade setup over 345, you're up 16% in a week. Not too shabby. With cash flow from the wheel. So that's a little bit of a recap of last week. Let's get into some of the trade ideas of this week. The first one is I'm going to be on Enbridge, and Enbridge is actually a stock that I pitched to the Hamlin University Endowment Fund. So we were in a finance class when I was at Hamlin University, and each student had to, pitch some stocks to either buy or sell for the portfolio. And one of the stocks that I pitched was Enbridge. And this was 2017 or 2018. I can't remember the exact year, but it was within that time. And so it was right around here. Enbridge was at about $36 a share. And you know what? It didn't really do too much for a couple of years. So this is back here where I pitched the stock as a buy back in college. Stock goes up, stock goes down, and now it's right back up. Enbridge pays a 5% dividend, you guys. 5% dividend. That's pretty juicy to me. Get 5% return to hold on to a stock that's a low beta. This moves very slowly. And I would even say because we're in a kind of like a breakout formation where we could break above 47 and squeeze higher, I'd be looking at potentially leap call options. Maybe it can take out this 57 level. But Enbridge, I'd look at something like maybe buying the 50 call, expiring 2027, buy the 50 call. It's going to cost about $260, but you have the ability to potentially control 100 shares, which is cool. Oh, my alarm's going off. You have the ability to potentially control 100 shares, and this is a low cost for something that expires in 2027, early 2027, but still. And you can do a mixture of that plus shares, and it can give you a really good risk profile on Enbridge. You collect that 5% dividend. If it appreciates in price, you get more. If you have the call option and it breaks out, you make a lot more because the implied volatility is pretty low. So I think that this is cheap. This is a cheaper call option considering the chart structure. Now, considering the volatility and the beta of this, this is probably efficiently priced, but still the chart setup makes it a good deal. So this $260, maybe by the time of 2027, maybe this could be worth $2,000. Maybe this could be a 10x trade on some boring ass stock, you know? Stop on Enbridge if you want a tight stop underneath 43. If you want a loose stop underneath 39. If you want a loose stop, go underneath 34.60. Remember, you still get that dividend. So even if it drops, you know, down to the stop level, if you technically hold it for a year, you would end up even. You know, and again, there are no guarantees in the market. You guys know that. Charts come with limitations and difficulties. I've got to say that every time I use a charting software. So that's a cool trade. We talked about Enbridge. We talked about some other trade ideas. Let's pull up some more so you guys can follow along in the trade ideas channel. Another one is waste management. This one is another stock that I pitched to the Hamlin University Endowment Fund. And again, that was back in that 2017 time period. So, you know, Hamlin, I'm expecting a nice good tip for making you guys 220% on this stock. Another stock that I pitched, by the way, was Amazon. Amazon back in 2017. You know, Amazon, just a casual 285% gain. I also pitched Google. Google, 2017. Just a casual 290% gain. So, you know, I hope that the people managing the fund right now are, you know, doing a good job, or hopefully didn't sell too much of those stocks. But going back to waste management, beautiful monthly chart. A bit, you know, monthly, all the monthlies just look so extended, but, you know, that's just the nature of things. Weekly chart, trying to sell off, can't. Now a bullish reversal bar on the daily time frame. Again, a bit extended. Maybe it's not a juicy breakout, but maybe you can buy some shares. Again, not advice. I'm probably going to buy some shares and then sit on it for a while. This also pays an 82-cent dividend. So if you're looking for just some stocks to potentially add to a longer term portfolio, nobody thinks about waste management. Nobody thinks about garbage, you know, but it's boring, but it makes money. That's all that matters. That's all I care about in regards to trading and investing, that is. Money is not everything. You want to have a good lifestyle, good relationships. You want to have good health. Health is so important, you guys. You want to live a long time so that you can let these compound gains take over, right? If you live to 1,000 years old, think about all these shares that you bought when you were 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Most of my target market, or most of the people that watch Victory Trades or Young Candlestick YouTube channel, are between 18 and 35. So that's pretty cool. So that's waste management. Keep an eye out on that stock for long setups, more of a longer term play. If you're looking for like a sector that's been beaten up and kind of out of rotation, but could come into rotation, look at MSOS. So this is the weed ETF. You know, this is still in a strong downtrend. I don't know if this is going to set up right now, but just draw some downtrend lines. Keep an eye on the volume. If you see a big spike in volume, you have a really good risk to reward. Your risk is, you know, maybe 20% if you want to risk towards the lows, but maybe you could get like something like 50 or even 100% gain on MSOS shares. And what's cool is it's nice and liquid, so you can wheel it. You're not going to get a ton of premium, but maybe you can roll out the covered calls. Maybe go out to like August or something like that. Buy 100 shares, sell the 4 covered call. You know, that's a pretty good return. 2% guaranteed, and you get called away at 4 at a good profit target. Maybe you do it at 5. You know, you're going to get a 1% gain, and you get a 100% gain on the shares if you sell the August 5-strike call on MSOS. Maybe buy a couple hundred shares. Once you get a pop, now the implied volatility spikes, then you can sell those call options. Just some trade ideas. Again, not advice. You guys know the deal. This is in a strong downtrend. Okay. Another stock I'm kind of looking at. This is a volatile, like penny stock, but it's holding over 718. Maybe there's a breakout over 8. Otherwise, you could dip by this at 720 with a tight stop underneath 690. So your risk really is only like 4%, but if it returns to the highs, you got 12% and more if it goes. Okay? So that's another trade idea. Another trade idea is XYZ. So this is Block stock, formerly known as Square, but this is Block. Kind of a little bit of a big ass gap down, and this has a lot of Bitcoin exposure. And this is a nice flag, rally, flag. Are we going to clear this resistance? A lot of gunk on XYZ over 60, but maybe if it could start to break over 59.50, you can maybe take a small position, then you can average up over 60, and then you could take profits near this like 64, 65 level. So looking for a potential 8% pop on XYZ stock. Otherwise, stop on that trade would be underneath 55. So maybe you could give yourself more time on those options, or you could grab shares, and then you can just set the hard stop and walk away. Okay? So that's another trade idea. We talked about the MSTR. If I'm going to go short on this, actually I'm lightly short. I shorted this actually on Friday and got some good gains. Got this bear put spread. I also sold some bear call credit spreads, but maybe going out a couple months, maybe out to August. And if I am bearish on Bitcoin, which I'm not, so this trade isn't even really in play, but things can change. Maybe buying the 350 put, selling the 345 put, risk of 235, maybe risk of 230 to make 270, So you're going to risk $230. You can make $270 if MSTR can close underneath that put spread. Okay, but for now, keep your eyes peeled. Okay? And, in terms of like potential like squeeze plays, you could check out like SPCE. Maybe this can squeeze. It's kind of pulling back near support. Your risk is low. Your reward is high. Your probability of profit is low though. SPCE is kind of just one of those garbage stocks. But sometimes if there's a high short interest, a lot of people betting against the stock, that can, be buying pressure. Every short seller is a guaranteed buyer, and that's where you get these squeezes, Kind of reminds me of GameStop, of course. GameStop is squeezing really well. And you can see the breakout on volume. Beautiful breakout. They own a lot of Bitcoin. Hood coming close to those all-time highs. Hood long over 66.90, and just trail stop that on whatever time frame you're looking at. So that's pretty cool. So then there's Bitcoin. Yep. So those are mostly the trade ideas. Post your stocks that you want analyzed right now. Now's the time. CYBR. This was a good trade a while back, over this like 282 level. And, since then, CYBR went up 48%. Now it's starting to gun for those all-time highs. That's an interesting potential trade idea. And, looking at some other stocks, Lake. This one potentially could be wheeled. It pays a dividend. The options aren't super liquid, but they're not bad. Maybe looking at selling the Lake 15 strike cash secured put. If you get assigned, great. You can sell 15 covered calls or even higher. The options aren't great. Just try to find some liquidity somewhere and be willing to hold on to the stock. Okay? Another squeeze play could be Peloton, PTON, similar to SPCE. Peloton starting to break out. Volume's okay, but it's not bearish. So Peloton maybe could get up to this like 850 level. You could buy over Friday's high. Stop goes underneath Friday's low. Try to take profit near 850 or 950. But again, Peloton's kind of a dead stock. We don't need to harp on that too much. Any other stocks that you guys want analyzed or broken down? I wish you all an amazing Memorial Day. Let's check out NVIDIA. NVIDIA earnings are coming up. So NVIDIA earnings are on May 28th. So what I'm going to do is, so that's in 2 days. That's on Wednesday after market closes. NVIDIA over here, NVIDIA has an expected move of plus or minus $10.60. I think that that expected move is generally low compared to what NVIDIA has done in the past. I would lean bullish on NVIDIA earnings, but anything can happen. I'm probably not going to take a trade. You know, it's broken out of structure, clearly turned it into support, went higher, kind of pulls back, but it's already starting to recover. And now that the market's green, that's looking pretty bullish. So I'll do some AI earnings analysis, but maybe I could sell some bullish put credit spreads. And if it just closes above the strike price, you know, there's support on NVIDIA at 118. That is 9% away. It's really only pricing in, though, a move down to, if it were to drop, 122. So the expected move is pretty low. So maybe I don't want to sell options. Maybe I want to look at buying options or taking a longer term stance on NVIDIA. Because I do have a price target of about 170 on NVIDIA, but that'll take a few years. It could happen sooner, but that's kind of the base case for now. Hope that helps you out, Jacob. Let's check out ATOM. ATOM. Interesting. So a nice breakout after earnings. That's bullish. Recently, I don't like this sharp sell-off, you know, dropping 90% from the highs. Not cool, but it's recovering a little bit. I'd be bullish as long as it can hold above 5 on ATOM. And again, if you want a tighter risk profile, you can buy over 680. Stop goes underneath 618. And then see if you can't get a move up to 846. But, you know, you could wheel this, buy 100 shares, sell the 750 covered call, expiring June 20th. That's a pretty good return on the premium that you'd get. That's pretty cool to me. So I like that. Let me know if you have any further questions on ATOM, Adam. Okay. But yeah, I'm excited for this week. Futures trading has been going well. That's super exciting. I've got a few payouts ready to come. SPX options are in play. That's super exciting. And we got some swing setups, some long ideas, some short ideas. We talked about Apple being bearish and having relative weakness. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm going to break down Nike and then we're going to wrap it up, okay? Let's check it out. So Nike, again, Nike's fair value is much higher than the current stock price. It's been a weak laggard for a long period of time. I took some long trades on Nike at 70, took profits at 73.50. Probably took profits too soon because it went up to 82. But then look at this. Nike gets thrashed and broken down underneath. As long as Nike can hold 59.50, ideally above 60, it has the chance to potentially break up and test something like 68, 69. I think this is a tricky stock because it is heavily affected by the tariffs. A lot of global exposure, but also it has that name brand recognition. It's also a blue chip stock. It also pays a dividend. It's also beneath fair value. So I think this is one stock that maybe just could be added to a longer term portfolio. And if it drops down to 40, maybe you scoop up a little bit more. If it drops down to 30, scoop up a lot more. I wouldn't add to Nike anything underneath 30 because at that point, now we're talking about what the hell is going on, Nike. Chill out on your sell-off. But for now, this is a value play. It's a contrarian value play on Nike. It's not the best trading stock. It's one of those stocks that kind of just meanders around until volume comes in. Once you see volume come in, maybe it can be a trading stock. So that's my quick take on Nike. All right, you guys. Hey, I've got a pool party to go to, so I'm going to get this uploaded. We'll have a ton of fun. Tag me if you have any questions. Follow me on Instagram if you want to see some of the lifestyle things I'm doing. It's been pretty fun lately. But you want to work hard, and then you can play hard. And even then, be responsible when you play. You don't need to go crazy or drink or do drugs or stuff like that. You can just vibe, have a good time, have good conversations. And I think that's really good for the brain to, expand socially, get out there. Because otherwise you can turn into this like weird little hermit in the corner where you don't really like talk to people, or it's choppy conversation. So think about ways you can practice your conversation skills, especially for traders. I feel like traders can be like nerds in the corner, nerds in the dark, just analyzing numbers and digits. And you can rack in the cash totally, but what about your social skills? Once you're rich, don't you want to be able to share it? Just something to think about. So I'll leave you with that note. Happy Memorial Day. Again, respect and honor those that have fallen, respect and honor those that have served for us, and just be a good person. It always goes a long way. Peace out, you guys.